A storm of cries pierced the quiet hum of the cafe, shattering the cozy chatter and clinking of cups. Heads turned, brows furrowed, and whispers filled the air. In the corner, a baby wailed relentlessly, tears streaming down his tiny cheeks, his sobs rattling the atmosphere like thunder in a clear sky. No toy, no lullaby, no soothing pat could calm him. And there sat his father, a man who looked powerful, refined, yet utterly helpless. He was no ordinary man. He was one of the wealthiest CEOs in the city, dressed in an immaculate suit worth more than the cafe's daily earnings. Yet in that moment, all his money, power, and status couldn't buy him what he needed most, peace for his child. Just then, a young waitress, her apron slightly stained and her hair tied back in hurried knots, walked over. She was poor, overworked, and unnoticed by most. But that day, she would do something so unthinkable, so moving, that everyone in the cafe would remember it forever. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small acts changing lives, then take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to StoryNest, because stories like this deserve to be heard by hearts everywhere. The CEO, known in business magazines for his ruthless strategies and iron will, sat powerless before his child. His eyes betrayed a storm of frustration and sorrow. He had been juggling boardroom battles, high-stake deals, and endless headlines, but when it came to calming his own baby, he was lost. His wife had passed away during childbirth, leaving him shattered, and though he never spoke about it, grief followed him like a shadow. His child's cries often reminded him of his own loneliness, his inability to fill the gap of a mother's warmth. He had hired the best nannies money could buy, yet none stayed long. Today, with his assistant running late, he had no choice but to bring the baby with him, hoping a simple coffee break would do no harm. But the baby's cries were relentless, echoing his own inner chaos. The waitress noticed all of this from a distance. Her name was Eliza, a young woman barely scraping by, working double shifts to afford rent in a rundown apartment. Life had been cruel to her too. She had lost her parents early, raised her younger brother until he could stand on his own, and now carried the weight of survival on her thin shoulders. Customers came and went without ever noticing her beyond the orders she carried. But when she saw the baby's distress, something in her heart stirred. It wasn't pity, it was recognition. She remembered nights when she used to rock her baby brother to sleep, singing softly through her own tears so he wouldn't feel the hunger gnawing at them both. Without hesitation, Eliza walked closer. The CEO barely looked up, his pride bruised by the public stares, his patience wearing thin. But before he could protest, Eliza gently extended her arms toward the baby. The entire cafe seemed to hold its breath. What would a poor waitress possibly do that the wealthy father couldn't? Yet the CEO, too desperate and exhausted, let her. The baby cried in her arms at first, but then, something magical happened. Eliza swayed softly, humming a lullaby not many in the cafe had ever heard before, a tune soaked in love, memory, and struggle. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried a warmth that filled the room like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds. Slowly, the baby's cries weakened, his sobs turning into hiccups, and within moments, he rested his head on her shoulder and drifted into peaceful sleep. The cafe was silent, every eye fixed on the scene. Some had tears in their eyes, others whispered in awe. The CEO, a man not used to being vulnerable in public, felt his throat tighten. It wasn't just that his baby had stopped crying. It was the way Eliza held him, as though he wasn't a burden, but a blessing. As though his tiny existence mattered beyond wealth, beyond appearances, beyond anything money could measure. For a moment, the CEO realized what all his fortune couldn't buy, genuine compassion. Eliza didn't make a show of it. She simply smiled, gently placed the sleeping baby back into his father's arms, and whispered softly that he just needed a bit of human warmth, a touch of motherly care. She returned to her work, as though nothing extraordinary had happened. But the CEO sat there stunned, his chest heavy with emotions he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Something about that young woman's selflessness shook him to the core. Over the next few days, he couldn't stop thinking about her. He visited the cafe again, not just for the coffee, but to see the waitress who had touched his life in a way no one else had. He learned of her struggles, her resilience, her quiet strength. And slowly, what began as gratitude turned into admiration. He started leaving generous tips, though she never asked for them. He offered her brother a scholarship through his company's foundation, without revealing his identity at first. And in time, he opened his heart to Eliza in ways he never thought possible. Life, which had felt like a ruthless storm to both of them, began to shift. The poor waitress who once felt invisible was now seen, valued, and cherished. And the millionaire CEO, who once thought power and wealth were everything, discovered that true riches lay in kindness, in love, in second chances. Their story spread quietly at first, whispered among café visitors, then shared widely when people learned who the man was. It wasn't about a CEO and a waitress anymore. It was about how one small act of compassion can heal wounds deeper than money can ever reach. And perhaps, most importantly, it was about a baby who cried restlessly in a café, only to be soothed by the unthinkable kindness of a stranger who was poor in wealth, but infinitely rich in heart. If this story touched your soul, if it made you pause and believe once again in the power of kindness, love, and second chances, then please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to StoryNest. Your support helps us bring more heart-touching stories to life. Before you go, we'd love for you to comment one word that this story made you feel: hope, love, strength, or anything that came to your heart.